This is the Authority Company podcast, conversations with leaders that are building our future. Hola, I'm Joe Pardavila, and there's a huge difference between chasing clients and attracting clients. And my guest knows a thing or two about that. His name is David Scranton. He is the author of Attract and Grow, a guide for financial advisors to go from endlessly chasing clients to effectively and efficiently attracting them. We're going to get into what it's like to be a financial advisor, how he stumbled upon his methodology, and how we can go from chasing to attracting. Dave Scranton, welcome to the show. How are you?
I'm doing great, Joe. How are you?
I'm excellent. And so I just got an email from my financial advisor letting me know that I got some sort of quarterly report. I don't know how to read it. That's why I got a financial advisor to go over that kind of stuff. But I think a lot of people feel like every financial advisor is built the same. Like they all have the same skill set. They do the same thing. There's no difference between it. But I believe you have a different opinion on financial advisors and the idea that they're not all created equal.
Well, you're right. It's funny because if I said to you, look, I went to the doctor, I have some back pain, and 4 different medical professionals gave me 4 different types of treatment. At first, you might think it's kind of strange, but then if I said, okay, well, one's an orthopedic surgeon, one's a chiropractor, one's a physical therapist, and the 4th is an acupuncturist, you go, okay, duh, that's why, because they all do different things, right? We know that in the medical field. But in the financial field, people size us all with one brush. And even though one of us might be different from the other, that's not readily recognizable to the prospect. So the prospect oftentimes goes, oh, he's a financial advisor and you're a financial advisor. You're both financial advisors. Isn't that nice? And sometimes it's true. Maybe sometimes you have the same business model, but a lot of times it's not. So because the public is not necessarily educated about the difference amongst advisors as they are in the medical field, we have to be that much more proactive in terms of letting them know these differences and why they exist and when they might need one difference versus another.
Well, can we dig in that a little bit? I know I want to get into the book
Yeah.
and the story and everything like that, but because like I said, I came across as a room, be like, yeah, all financial advisors are the same, and you broke it down like they're not. But so what separates? And I'm not talking about in terms of like their worth, but like what are the different kinds of financial advisors people would be looking into?
Well, there are different ways to splice it, right? So you can look at it and say, okay, first of all, you have financial advisors based upon the age range of their specialty, right? Some people work on people early in life that specialize in accumulation. Some people work with people that are in retirement. Some people work with those that are approaching retirement, right? So there's different stages of life, first and foremost. Second, there's different levels of net worth. Some people work better with mom and pop. Some people work better with more the mass affluent, and some with the high net worth. They have strategies and tools for the high net worth. Now you can splice it another way, right? What is the actual niche? Some advisors specialize in more life insurance. They use life insurance as financial planning for financial planning strategies. Some specialize in securities, but on a commission basis. Others are registered investment advisors. They're a fiduciary. They specialize in securities, but on a fee basis. So as opposed to having a suitability standard, they're held to the highest standard, a fiduciary standard that they have to put together the recommendation that they feel is best for that client and that client's needs and goals. Other people just specialize in annuities, right? And whereas annuities aren't terrible, they're also not the answer to cancer. So, I think people need to realize that if an advisor sells one thing and one thing only, the old adage that, well, if you're a hammer, everything looks like a nail. So there's several ways to splice specialties, based upon people's needs and advisory practices. And again, the consumer needs to be more informed. In many cases, so does the advisor.
I love that. Thank you. Thank you for humoring me because I was always fascinated by that because
Yeah,
I think a lot of people take it for granted that, oh, okay, financial advisors are all the same. And so the one
that's right.
that you do and with the book Attract and Grow is to help the other financial advisors out there to attract clients. And
Mhm.
you make this differentiation in the book and in your work about attract and chase because
Sure.
there's this drive of let's chase, let's go out, let's put ads, let's do marketing, let's do everything we
Right.
can do to let people know we exist. But then there's the idea of attract. So let's break down those two simple things because people may be like, oh well, attract is a chase, isn't it? So what are the differences between attracting and chasing clients?
Well, Joe, you probably can't tell by looking at me, but when I was a teenager, I was a national bodybuilding champion, right? And young guy, filled with testosterone, aggressive. So I got in this business And I'm cold calling, I'm cold canvassing, I'm going industrial parks, going door to door. I don't even think you can legally do that today, trying to talk to the CEO, the president of the company. And I thought that was fun. That was fun. When you're young, you're aggressive. It was like a sport to me, you know? I get thrown out in my ear. I'd high five my associate. We go into the next place, right? But as you start to get a little older, it gets a little exhausting. And all of a sudden, you want a classier business model. So I'll never forget the day I was sitting at a conference with the company I was with at the time, looking at one of the top producers from my office. And he did multiples of what I did. And I just remember looking at him and thinking, this guy makes it look effortless. I'm out there killing myself, and he makes it look so easy. And I said, what's the difference between him and me? And I said, I want to become him. I want to figure out how to be that guy that makes it look effortless. And the secret was that he no longer chased people like me that aggressively. He had a business model that allowed us, him to attract people. So yeah, he was working hard, but he wasn't chasing them. People were coming in because they knew him, they knew of him, they won his specialty, they won his niche. And most people were saying yes. Whereas for me, I had a lot of people saying no. So I kind of made it my life's mission, Joe, to say, okay, I'm going to learn everything there is about attracting as an alternative to chasing in the financial service industry, and try to emulate that model and create a model that worked for me. And that's what Attract and Grow is all about.
And in the book, you talk about the AIDA strategy, right? Attention, interest, desire, and action.
For sure.
I don't want you to let all the worms out of the can here, but let's talk about that strategy and how it could help a financial advisor.
So it's an old marketing formula they actually used. I thought it was back in early 1940s and 50s. But further research, I found out it was actually 1898 is when the first person developed the acronym AIDA, AIDA, attention, interest, desire, action. And the idea is if you're marketing to someone, get them moving towards you slowly at first, metaphorically speaking. Then you get them excited. They move a little quicker, a little quicker, a little quicker until they're running full speed towards you and they want to do business with you. So, how does that apply to, our business? Well, the first A, attention, in our business has to do with creating a business model that differentiates you from your competitors. See, one of the problems I had 30 plus years ago was I blended in with everybody else. I didn't have a point of differentiation. So because I blended in, I don't care how good I was, I couldn't possibly even begin the attraction method because I looked like everyone else. So I realized the first step to get people's attention was that I had to look different. I had to stand out, right? You and I are sitting here today wearing black shirts. Well, I've got a slide when I do keynote presentations sometimes for financial advisors where I've got 50 people sitting there dressed in black. And I say, can you see me? Can you tell which one I am? And of course, everybody laughs. No one could pull me out of the crowd, right? Then the next slide shows 49 people wearing black suits and I'm wearing a blue suit. And that's the secret to standing out is the differentiation. So the first A, getting them moving towards you is that, you stand out, you get their attention. Okay, that's the first step. But then you've got to grow that attention to interest. And how do you do that? You do that through education. What is education? Well, in marketing, it's called branding, right? Think about why people pay millions of dollars for ads during the Super Bowl, right? They want to educate a consumer about how their specialty, their product, their niche might help that consumer. Big pharma is great at this, right? They advertise things, drugs that we can't even get on our own, right? We need a prescription to get these things. But big pharma does it. Why? Because they want to educate us how their drug might help whatever ails us to create grassroots demand. So that's the I, interest. You start with getting their attention by differentiation, and then you grow it to interest by branding, by educating people. And that branding makes you look like a safer option, makes your product and service look like a safer option because the consumer is now educated about what it is. It doesn't come out of the blue. But then you got to go from interest to desire. And that's where ultimately somebody's got to raise their hand and say, I want to have a one-on-one conversation with Dave Scranton about what he can do to help me in my finances, right? So that's through lead generation in the financial services world, which is different from branding. Branding's educating, getting interest. Lead generation is getting somebody to raise their hand and say, let's have a conversation. And that has to be attraction based also. Now, we have some advisors like every other organization that does dinner seminars, right? But dinner seminars are a great example, Joe, of something, and you're younger than me, so you probably can't relate, but they're not an attraction-based mechanism, right? Think about it. If I'm bribing you with a steak dinner to come and hear me present, I'm chasing you. You know it, I know it, we're not fooling anybody, right? So although those methodologies can work, they're not an attraction-based method. There are better methods. So then you go from differentiation, getting somebody's attention, educating them and gaining some interest through branding, turning the branding into desire with attraction-based lead generation systems. They raise their hand, say, hey, I want to have a one-on-one conversation with you. And ultimately that goes into action. What's action? Well, that's where your sales process comes in. Continuing the attraction-based process and getting them to say, you know what, I need to do this. I want to become your client. And last thing I'll say about this, Joe, is that you have to get all four things right. If you get one of these things wrong and you spook the prospect and the prospect feels like you're chasing after them, metaphorically speaking, they will run from you and you won't get that prospect back. So the key to attraction, to the AIDA formula, is to attract in every step and not do anything to inadvertently go into chase mode and to spook the prospect. And unfortunately, a lot of us early on our career, we're taught chasing methodologies, whether it's for lead generation or sales, that are really old, outdated tactics that just don't work anymore.
Interesting. It's funny. So I've worked with a bunch of healthcare entrepreneurs, like doctors who started businesses and stuff like that. And one of the things that they've always brought up to me, and I at first found fascinating, was when you go to medical school, they don't teach you anything about running an office, managing
Yeah, I
books. They
know.
didn't teach you any of this stuff that's kind of important. And I said to a doctor once, like, why not? And he goes, like, there's too much crap to learn in medical school. We got no time for that stuff. So I almost feel like, in a way, that's what happens with financial advisors. If through schooling or maybe just through apprenticeships, that no one's really telling anyone about this stuff. It's stuff that you kind of have to learn the good old the good old school of hard knocks, right?
Very true. It's funny. To protect the innocent, I have a client, Dr. Steven, from many, many years ago. I don't know if Dr. Steven's alive now. He was, probably early 60s back then. And he said that to me. He said, if I could go back and do it all over again, I would have found a way to take business and financial courses to more efficiently run my practice. And I will tell you, as somebody who coaches and mentors financial advisors every day, it's a primary part of my job. I hear that all the time. They say, Dave, I'm a great advisor. When I'm in front of people, I'm really good. Some might say, I'm great at sales. Some might say, I'm even good at lead generation and filling up my calendar. But a lot of them say, I'm really terrible at running a business. I'm not good at it. And some even say they don't want to do it. And that's unfortunate because that's what really holds a lot of advisors back from truly scaling their business, right? If you're going to be in there and you're the only person that's seeing clients and seeing prospects, and you're trying to do a lot of other stuff along with it, you're never going to be able to grow. You have to learn to delegate. You have to learn to scale, not just paperwork. But here's the interesting thing. Joe, I did some goal setting probably now 35 years ago. I went to Nantucket Island in the Northeast. I don't know if you know much about Nantucket, one of my favorite places in the world. Took a bike, went down to the end of a long beach, and I sat there, spent 2 days under an umbrella doing all kinds of goal setting. And what I did was I painted a picture of my perfect day in the office. My perfect day involved coming in, seeing prospective clients, not even clients, converting prospects to clients and going home, doing nothing else, delegating everything else. Now, when I set this up as a vision, did I believe this was possible? No. I didn't know how I was going to do it. Yeah, I knew I could delegate paperwork, but I thought, you know what? Can I really delegate prospecting phone calls? I mean, if it's a referral, the prospect wants to hear from me. Can I really delegate client reviews? The client wants to hear from me. So I had a lot of limiting beliefs I had to work through, but I would tell you now, between what I've done in my practice and what I've taught other advisors to do, you can pretty much take a clean slate of paper and draw your financial practice however you want, and it can be accomplished. But you have to work at your leadership and your management skills and learn how to run a business.
That's good stuff. Dave, one of the things that people I listen to me or read about my stuff is, like, I have this phobia of the check the box mentality that we have in this country and probably around the world too, whereas people consider checking the box as a job well done, as opposed to, like, well, what
Yeah,
went into that? Did you check the box well? Or, there's no that they would checking boxes. There's really just a space for just checking that you did it, not whether you did it well or not. So I
that's right.
wonder,
That's
and
right.
I want to pull a thread on something you mentioned about, like, some advisors be like, I want to fill up my calendar. How much does that hold them back to financial advisors be like, oh my God, I'm successful because my entire calendar is completely full. I must be killing it. And then not really thinking about, oh, well, what are all those blocks on my schedule really mean at the end of the day? It's almost like the VC model of like throwing spaghetti against the wall and hopefully something sticks. How do you break people from that habit of just like the idea of like, oh, if I'm busy, if I'm filling up my day, that means I'm successful.
Well, first of all, there are stages of plateau in people's businesses. It happens. The goal is to keep the plateau periods as short as possible. And there are places where people think, okay, my calendar's full. I can't be any more efficient. And then they look back a few years later and say, wow, I was really inefficient back then. I could have I'm a lot better now. But I can't get any more efficient than I am today. And then 3 years later, they look back and say, wow, I am more efficient, right? So, for example, the first step is you're right. My calendar is completely full. It could be full with paperwork. It could be anything. But, we feel good because, we're our country, our work ethic. We want to work. We want to add value. We don't want handouts, right? So it feels good to put in a good day of work. And sometimes it could be busy work, but we still go home feeling good because our brain tricks us, right? So at the beginning, the first level is where, okay, I had a full day. I feel good. But then you look back and you say, well, a third of it was paperwork and a quarter of it was servicing clients on nonsense issues. And some of it was making these phone calls I could train somebody else to do, right? How much did I really do my highest value time, right? So then you get to the next iteration. You push off all the paperwork. And maybe now you're just seeing clients, but you're seeing existing clients and you're seeing new clients, right? And now you think it's great. I'm seeing all clients. But you're spending a lot of time seeing clients with whom you already have all their assets. You can't do much. It's more of a feel-good meeting, right? But maybe you feel obligated to do it. Maybe you've just fallen into a rhythm where you have a limiting belief that I have to do it. You've gotten comfortable, right? But then you realize, wait a minute, that's not helping drive new business into the firm. If I want to be the rainmaker, I can hire an advisor. I can go hire a certified financial planner in many cases for less money on an hourly basis than I'm making, right? So I can elevate to my highest and best duty, bring prospects in, convert them to clients. I can have a CFP sit here and review with my clients, right? So now you're on the third level. You think you're super efficient. All you're doing is you're the rainmaker. You're turning these prospects into clients. And then one day you wake up and say, wait a minute, no, I could have 5 of me. I could build a multi-advisor practice and have 5 of me, and I could mentor and coach these people, and we can get 5 times as many new clients. So now you elevate to the fourth level. So there's all these different little pauses and little rest points where you stop and you think, I'm as efficient as I can be. Well, I've got news for you. Whenever you think you're as efficient as you can be, you can always get that much more efficient and focus on higher and higher hourly rate duties.
It's great. Good stuff. Good stuff. I want to put a pin on the attractive thing. And as you can tell, Dave, I'm a very simple person. So let's do both sides of the coin. One side of the coin is what makes someone attractive. On the other side is what makes them less attractive. Boil it down for me. A couple things, like one on each side. Like what makes someone really attractive and what makes someone less attractive in the world of financial advisors.
Well, you're using the word attractive, and let me answer with the word attention, and then
Okay.
if you want a different answer, just course correct me. But to look attractive, I'm thinking about first getting somebody's attention. So what makes somebody less attractive is when you blend in. When you blend in, which oftentimes is you work for a lot of the big firms. There are several advisors at your firm in your area. There's a lot of firms that are a lot like you, whether it's the big wirehouses or big mutual insurance companies. So first of all, becoming independent helps, but then having a niche that you're branded with, something you're passionate about. I have people that specialize in working with just divorcees, right? I have people that specialize in maximizing Social Security benefits for people. I found people who specialize in life settlements, people that specialize in helping future generations from business owners move wealth and pass wealth on, right? These are niches that make you stand out, that get people's attention. So you look attractive because you're different. And the key to that is it's like Goldilocks. It's got to be just right, not too wide of a niche, not too narrow. Some things I mentioned to you are a little too narrow, which means you may not attract enough people. If you're too wide, you're a generalist. If you're too narrow, you might not have a big enough top of the marketing funnel to put enough people in. So for us, our point of attention is being income specialist. And I'm not talking about some annuity guy who has a radio show. He says he's the income guy, but that's all he does. I'm talking about literally specializing in a universe of income generating strategies. Everything that generates interest and dividends. high dividend stocks, bonds, preferreds, annuities, BDCs, REITs, everything. And for our group, as a general rule, that's a specialty that our advisors have taken a passion with. So they're not using Monte Carlo analysis. They're not telling a client, hey, you can go for growth and withdraw 4% a year in retirement, and there's a 95% chance you're going to be okay and not run out of money. Translation is a 5% chance you will run out of money, and then I'm going to go and hide when that happens, right? So, our specialty, we think, is Goldilocks. It's just wide enough to attract enough people, but it's narrow enough that not a lot of people are doing. Not a lot of advisors are interested in dividend focused. They're total return focused. Okay. But bottom line is find the niche, whatever you're passionate about as an advisor that you want to do that's of the right breadth, and take it and master it and brand yourself as a specialist. That's the first key to attracting instead of chasing. So now, if you want to course correct me, I didn't answer it quite
No,
the way you
I love
wanted. Let's have at it, Joe.
so say someone doesn't follow that advice and says like I want to be, because one of the things at the authority company, when someone says to us, when we ask them the question, who is this book for, and they say this book is for everybody, we're like, oh God, no, there's no book for
Yeah,
everybody.
yeah,
It's not a thing.
right, right.
So for financial advisors, it sounds like it's almost like the same thing with financial advisors. Like if you try to be a financial for everyone, you're a financial advisor for no one.
And you have a lot of competitors, because a lot of people are generalists. The problem is a lot of people have a scarcity mentality and they want to be a generalist because they're afraid that, oh, well, if I specialize, that means if somebody wants something outside my niche, I need to say no. And they think they're going to get less business because of it. But I will tell you, and anybody who specializes in the industry can tell you that you attract more business than you lose by specializing. Let me repeat that. If you're a specialist and you're willing to forego business that isn't in your realm of specialty, you will attract more than you will lose. So the first thing is getting over that limiting belief that by being a specialist, I need to give something up, right? So why is the magic there? Well, think about it this way, Joe. If I said, okay, you're going to start a business, whatever it is. Okay. You say, I'm going to start a book publishing company, and I'm going to plop you in some area of the country, and you have two choices. You could take on a business model where you have 100% of the people who want what you have, but you've got hundreds of competitors. Or you have 10 or 20% of the people in that community that want what you have, but you have zero competitors. You're the only one. Which one is going to help you get off to a quicker start?
Probably the latter.
The latter, yeah. And see, that's the point here. It's like the book Blue Ocean Strategy from the 1990s, the marketing book, right? That's creating a blue ocean, something that's different versus getting to a red ocean. So when people are generalists, they're in that red ocean. When you're in that red ocean, your prospect comes in, metaphorically speaking, with their arms crossed, maybe not physically, saying, okay, what can you do for me? And now they're interviewing you, sizing you up amongst all your competitors. And let's face it, there's a consumer, they don't really know how to interview a financial advisor any more than we would know how to interview an oncologist or an orthopedic surgeon, right? We don't know because we're not in that field. So by standing out, you have more control when you're talking to people because they need you and they had to look hard to find you.
Nice, nice. All right. Well, in the book Attract and Grow, you describe a shift from a growth-based investing model to an
Yeah.
income generating
Yeah.
strategy. What led to that change, and what's the benefit? The bottom line, really, your clients, right? It's you benefit as well, but really, it starts with the clients first, right?
Well, it's interesting because again, that's our breadth. For us, our organization, most of our advisors, that is their niche. That's not too wide, not too narrow, like the Goldilocks zone, specializing in all things income. And like you said, I stumbled on it a quarter century ago, actually 1999, when I knew there was going to be a tech bubble that was going to burst. I knew I had to protect my clients. So I said, I need to specialize in all things income, bonds, preferreds, all that stuff, high dividend stocks. And that's when I was frankly introduced to annuities. I didn't know much about annuities at the time. I'm a CFA, a chartered financial analyst, so I'm a stock bond guy, right? But I also knew that, whoa, if I just moved everybody over to those types of things that are high dividend, and back then we were working as brokers, not fee-based advisors, I could barely make a living with the commissions on that. And yeah, I didn't want to have to lay off my assistant, close my office down. So I was a bit of a dilemma. Then when I was introduced to annuities and what annuities could do, I realized, okay, if I could put annuities in here as just part of the puzzle, along with all the income generating securities, and truly become the specialist in the universe of income generating strategies, I could protect my clients from the impending market, the bursting of the market, which did end up happening toward the end of the first quarter of the year 2000. And by just putting yourself a little bit in annuities, it helps a little bit more compensation so that I can actually make a living, keep the lights on, keep my assistant going, and go from there. And that was what I did for the benefit of my clients. Now, what was the surprise for me? Fast forward 6 years, and my business went up tenfold in revenue, literally tenfold in 6 years. Why? Because I stumbled on a specialty. I didn't, I wasn't the guy who sat here and thought, I want this specialty because it's going to help me grow my business. But that was the byproduct of it. And people started to say back then, hey, you want growth? Go see my guy at Smith Barney, or go see my guy at AG Edwards, right? These places that were brokerage firms back then that don't even exist anymore. You want income? Go see Dave Scranton. And because I was the only one doing it, it didn't matter that only 10 to 20% wanted it. I was the only guy doing it. And I started attracting, not chasing. People started to come to me. And again, my business went up tenfold in 6 years.
Wow, that's awesome. You mentioned your team a bunch in this conversation, and in the book, you emphasize the importance of building a $50 million team. It almost sounds like you're putting a dream team together here, Dave. Um,
Yeah, it is.
but tell me about this team, and what are the key attributes of an effective team in financial services? Part of this $50 million team.
Well, the $50 million team is the first level, and it's the level that takes an advisor who doesn't ever want to have other sales advisors out there, who really wants to be the rainmaker, but they see the value in that. Their highest hourly duty they can do in their work is to see prospects and convince prospects to become clients, right? Solve their needs, convince them to become clients, and hand them off. So the $50 million team is a team of 4 people, could be 5, but traditionally 4, that supports that advisor that just wants to get to that level and have a huge practice, but not complicate it with other sales advisors, okay? So what they have is they have the first person that is the marketing person that's helping them with all the lead generation initiatives and setting up all the appointments for that advisor, running that advisor's schedule. Then they have a new business processor, somebody who's handling all the paperwork with new clients, even additional business from existing clients, doing all the paperwork for the transfers, allocations, and everything. Then number 3, they have somebody who's a client service person, um, preferably a licensed client service person who's doing all the review meetings with existing clients. So now that lead advisor is only just acquiring new clients or acquisition. They're not doing the service because they have a service person dedicated to that. There's a lot of good advisors who are, have a sales instinct. They love getting the new person in, but they're really bored with doing the client reviews. But there's other people that you could bring on that are excited about the client reviews, that'll do it with more vim and vigor than you will, and do it better and find more additional assets. The fourth person is just somebody at the front desk, the director of first impressions, to wow people when they come in, to open the mail, to be an assistant to everybody, and so on. That's the $50 million team, right? And that gets people up to the point where, hey, the breadwinner, the owner of the organization is just seeing prospects, converting them to clients. Now, if you want to go up to the next level, that's where you start building a multi-advisor organization. And now you have to get a little more complex from there. But that's not for everyone.
Wow, that's so cool. That's great. I want to wind things down here, but you mentioned you predicted the dot-com bubble back in 2000, and we are recording this podcast a few days after the almost like baby AI crash because of DeepSeek. So and obviously it wasn't a huge crash, but you saw because these AI companies have built up such such a bank that for them to crash a little bit really means nothing to for most people. Um, but what are you hearing in terms of AI and folks, actively wanting to invest in these companies? Because, I often joke people like if you're a company now that doesn't have AI within the first 2 lines of the company, like people don't want to invest. And that's on the VC side, obviously. But tell me about what your thoughts are. You predicted the dot-com. What are your thoughts about the AI bubble?
Well, the dot-com was simple because price earnings ratios had gotten so high across this entire internet part of the stock market that it was obvious that a bubble was going to burst. It was reminiscent of the old tulipania from 500 years ago, right? This is different, and we're not there yet. but it's a potential for us to get there. You know, bubbles are technology is it always has different names. Remember, one time automobiles were technology, air travel with technology, right? And then manufacturing efficiencies, and it was the internet, and now it's AI is technology. But these bubbles, if this is a bubble, always last longer and longer. Things go up further and longer than you think, and then they crash. The crash is harder than you think. So the biggest scare about AI to me is I don't think we really have a clear vision of all the things it's going to do to help corporate America. How much more efficiency it's going to eliminate in terms of expenses and therefore enhancing profitability. And we don't really have a clear vision of what else it's going to do to be able to advance various industries. So until that, it's pure speculation, it's optimism. And let's face it, stock market investors, market participants love shiny objects. When there's a new shiny object, they chase after it and oftentimes drive the value up. So, will it come to fruition that this is as big of a deal as the biggest optimists think? Maybe, but maybe not. So for now, what I do want to say is it's not obvious it's a bubble, but it's a risk. And every time it goes up, the risk factor is higher. And when I see the S&P dropping by 2% in a day and the NASDAQ by 3.5%, and the Dow being up, it tells me the only reason those other indices dropped so much was because those AI stocks. In fact, last year, the S&P was up 24%. If you took the Magnificent Seven out of there, the market was only up 6. So 18 of the 24%, Joe, was because the Mag 7. So again, when it starts to get that lopsided, and when news about this company DeepSeek, which right now we don't know if it's real or it's a deep fake, right? We really don't know yet. When that comes out and that spooks the markets to this extent, it just tells me that market participants are getting a little frothy. They have one finger on the trigger and they're cautious. So I think that means that, our clients need to be cautious too. And we need to be responsible not to get too caught up in the hype, because we know our clients might just get caught up in the hype. And we can't be order takers. A good advisor, Joe, is not an order taker. They're a leader. They lead their advisor. They're the voice of reason. I would rather turn away a client than put them in something that I think is wrong, even if it means I'm going to lose revenue.
Nice, nice. That's good stuff. It kind of reminds me because for years I was on this high horse, Dave, about streaming and the streaming bubble that popped, a couple of years ago now, with the great Netflix correction, as it's come to be called. But I just to give you some background, Dave, I worked for many years for a radio station that was owned by the Walt Disney Company. So inherently, I have a lot of Walt Disney stock. And in the mid 2020s, there was this whole thing where the value of Disney was correlated to their streaming numbers. And to me, as a lifelong Disney consumer, stock owner, I was like, wait a minute. A company that sells Mickey Mouse hats, has parks all over the planet, has movies
Yeah.
make billions of dollars, they are being judged upon their streaming subscribers. And I couldn't wrap my brain around it. It just made no sense to me. I remember I spoke to the co-founder of Netflix about it, and he was like, oh yeah, tech guy, it makes perfect sense that it's based on subscribers. And then all of a sudden, the correction happens and they're like, oh yeah, we don't care about subscribers. Now we care about profitability. So it always frustrated me that, like, if someone who's, as you can tell, not very bright could see, like, wait, this doesn't make any sense. And now all of a sudden Wall Street woke up one day and like, yeah, we don't care about those numbers. We really just care if you're profitable.
There's so many stories of things like that happen. The Disney part actually made a little bit of sense because Disney's growth, future growth, not current profits, but future growth was based upon the growth of their streaming business. So all of a sudden, when they thought, ooh, that future growth is in danger, that pushed the stock price down. I get it. But that's the thing. Whenever there's a new industry, something new, they always use metrics other than profitability because the companies aren't profitable yet. They have to use other metrics. The problem is that's a slippery slope. And we see that every few years in a different sector, and we just have to recognize it and be smart about it. And again, don't let our clients fall into those traps. Don't be an order taker.
Good stuff. All right, Dave, I always wrap up these conversations talking about the dedications for the book. And in the book, you dedicate it to your late mother. From her, I learned that the keys to overcoming any challenge life throws at your stubborn persistence and a tireless work ethic. So tell me about why you dedicated this to your mom.
Yeah. Stubborn persistence, by the way, I'll tell you that got watered down by the editors, uh, because I'm 3/4 Polish. She was 100% Polish. So what I said was, she taught me how to be a stubborn Polak. The editors go, you can't say that. So there it is. I just said it on your podcast, Joe. But that's truly what it is, to have that stubborn persistence. one of the favorite little reads in theories is this book, I forget if it's called 211 or 212 degrees. But the whole point is, imagine you had a theory that, hey, I can boil water, I can heat water and get hotter and hotter, and eventually it'll power a locomotive, right? So you heat it to 100, nothing, 150, nothing, 200, nothing, 210, nothing, 211, nothing. And then you go, I give up. That's what most people do in business. They gave up 1 degree before they got to a boiling point, created steam, and were able to power a locomotive. They gave up before they got there. So for me, my stubbornness that my mom taught me, call it persistence, stubbornness, whatever euphemism you want to use, is what got me to a point where, failing out of the business my first 8 years, I stayed in there to say, look, I'm going to figure out how to make this work. 4 years of a little bit of growth, but mediocrity, same thing. And then finally being there long enough to stumble on that blue ocean strategy and getting that 10-fold increase at the very, very beginning of the 20th century. And then being able to create my business into what it is today. So, Mom, thank you.
That's awesome. He is Dave Scranton, the author of Attract and Grow, the Financial Advisor's Blueprint for Attracting $50 million in Annual Assets. Dave, thanks so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Love it, Joe. Thank you, man.
And that's going to do it for the Authority Company podcast. If you want to find out more about David and his book, go to theauthoritycompany.com.